good, y'all? It's your boy ReaLife, and you're listening to another episode of Validated Magazine. And today's guest is an Oakland native, Michael J. Payton. Welcome to the show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Town business, man. Thank you for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
No, definitely. So, I'm sure a lot of people know who you are because you're on your come up. It's been a long time coming. You've been putting in the work. I've been doing the research. Definitely, congratulations and want to give you your roses, on your way up. A lot of times people want to wait till you get where you're going before
Yeah.
they give you your flowers. I want to
Oh,
make
yeah.
sure we do that now.
I appreciate that, man.
No,
Yeah, I
definitely.
got a lot of cousins and best friends I didn't know about prior to
That's always the
waiting.
case, right? Coming out the woodwork.
Yes, sir.
So to get right into it, a native of Oakland, California, what's your earliest memory of film production, hip hop, just the creative?
Man, I've always just been creative. I started off as really I was a rapper at first, and then before that I was writing poetry. I was always a big on writing since I can remember, from being 5, 6 years old, writing and drawing and just always trying to find ways to be creative. My mom was a writer, and she kind of instilled that gift or that passion into me. I would start writing poetry. Then I started listening to, hip hop at about 10 or 11, really getting into it. And that's when I became an artist myself. From being an artist, I learned how to write, produce records, and I just became one of those hyphenates who did it all, just trying to figure it out. Started shooting music videos from an early age, inspired by like Hype Williams and the music videos that he would create. He was my favorite director growing up. And so I would just try to do my videos on these like little low budget cameras and try to make little Hype Williams videos for my raps that I was making. And then that evolved into me making videos for other people. That evolved into me making documentaries, and that evolved into me, getting, being here doing the Murder Inc. documentary and so forth. That's just the Cliff Notes version of it.
Yeah, though, but we're gonna get into it.
Yeah.
So you consider yourself a change agent. Can you elaborate on that for us a little bit?
Yeah, I don't like, I'm real hard on like titles, man. Like when people say, "Oh, you're a filmmaker," "Oh, you this," or "You're that," I don't know what to really categorize myself as, because there's people out there who study film and they know film like the back of their hand, and that's what their passion and they love. I'm just a creative person. I'm really more of an entrepreneur than I am anything else. I'm an entrepreneur first, creative, second, even though it's in my DNA, it's in my blood. But whether it's music or film or working in politics and trying to create change in that regard, like I'm always trying to find different ways to just paint and put our lens, our hip hop cultural lens on different canvases. So I prefer, entrepreneur, change agent, social entrepreneur, just something broader, because I think limiting me to just being a filmmaker is not, that doesn't really do what I envision for myself justice.
So, and I know you dabble in politics a little bit. How did you actually get into that?
Well, just going back from my roots in Oakland, man, like Oakland is a very, very activist, strong, place, man. And, my mom was always very active in just making change in the neighborhood, just little things like, whether it was taking stop signs down to places they didn't need to be, or taking, gathering kids and taking them on trips to Disneyland and so forth, and just trying to show them different things. I've always learned that change starts right there at the community level. And, as you get older, you realize that you have people at, these seats in positions of power making decisions about your life, your neighborhood, your kids. It makes you like, well, wait, man, we got all this power and influence as a culture. We can make Nike hot. We can make, Louis Vuitton and Balenciaga hot, but we can't get school board members on our, we can't elect the people at our school board. We can't get the mayor, who's going to put the policies that we care about in our city, our region. Forget about just the president and senators and everything at the federal level. That's one thing, but focus on the people right there on the ground. We can elect sheriffs. We can elect, board members to our city council to, make sure that our neighborhood's looking and reflecting the values that we have. So I'm just big on using our hip hop lens to make sure that we're not just on a commercial level, but we're also in the space of making change, like really making change. So we ain't just standing outside the city hall saying, please change this or change that. We're actually on the inside doing that because we can do that, just like we do everything else so well.
No, that's dope. So you're actually a product of homeschooling. How do you feel that benefited you, and how did you feel it hindered you, if at all?
Oh man, what hindered me because it was no prom, it was no none of that fun stuff. But I think it benefited me because I was able to just lock in and focus on not only my schoolwork and not be distracted by all the stuff that goes on in public school, but also just really honing on my craft as a creative. I mean, all the time I spent uh, studying and working mostly from home. It wasn't totally homeschool because I still had classes I would have to go to a couple of times a week, but for the most part, it was a home program, and I was able to sit there on a computer for hours and hours after I do my homework, of course, and figure out how to use music making software, figure out how to use video editing software, just kind of learn on my own before I even got out of high school. I was already making music videos and editing music and stuff, and that really helped me to just lock in. Whereas if I'm gone for 8 hours out the day, I wouldn't have had time to sit down and just be at my computer all day, just locked in my room, trying to make beats and trying to learn. So it really just gave me the freedom and the ability to kind of think outside the box. Whereas, sometimes in regular school, you're just not able to get that full one-on-one attention to really explore all your gifts and the things that you're really interested in.
True. And I understand you're also college educated. How do you feel that opened up doors for you?
Well, she'll open up a whole lot of student debt, but that's another story. but no, I feel like it opened doors in a lot of ways, just because me coming from being homeschooled, it got me out of I kind of went from the frying pan into the not even the fire. It was like the freaking lava, because you go from just being isolated into your own world, and then you have to go out here and you dealing with so many different cultures, different people, different backgrounds, different experiences. And so it benefited me in that way. And I really think that kind of having that structure really helped me to, understand business and understand, structure and having, a workflow. And then, again, it also allowed me the flexibility to keep exploring my craft and keep exploring my interests as an artist, as an entrepreneur, ultimately as a filmmaker, change agent, if you will. Yeah, I mean, college was a major. I wouldn't take it, even with all the debt and everything. I wouldn't take it back because it was I think it benefited my worldview big time.
Nice. So speaking of college and the debt, you received a scholarship through Jay-Z's Sean Carter Foundation. How did that opportunity come about?
Well, growing up again as a student of hip hop, and I might have left that out, but I was a huge, one of the things I was able to do being, locked up in my room, not like that, but being just, honed in on my craft is I studied everybody in the game, and Jay was one of the people I studied just, because I was coming of age at the time when he was really growing into himself as a businessman and moving away from music. And I started studying every magazine article, everything I could read about Jay and his business and all things that he had going on. And I remember reading somewhere in a magazine or something that he had, among his many businesses and endeavors that he was doing outside of music, that he had a scholarship foundation that his mother had helped, he co-founded with his mom. And I was, I might have been 16, 17, whatever, when I read that. But I remember when it was time for me to apply for college and apply for scholarships, the Sean Carter Foundation was probably one of the first things I looked up and applied for. And lo and behold, they got in and supported me all throughout my college education, financially, and as well as called and checked in on me and tried to give, always offered these different opportunities to come and do apprenticeships or internships. And I grew up on the West Coast in the Bay Area, and they're based in New York. So obviously I couldn't reach, meet every opportunity, but just the fact that they would call and check in and offer not only that financial support, but that moral support to know you got, Jay-Z's organization is like backing you up and wants to see you succeed. That meant a lot to me, especially as Jay being, my favorite artist and someone I looked up to immensely as not only just an artist, but as a businessman as well. That just gave me even more motivation to like keep going and keep striving. And as you know, and we'll get to it, but that all comes, full circle later on in my story. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, they definitely played a big role in my education.
So I know you're from the West Coast, but you do a lot on the East Coast, and a lot of the artists that you like are East Coast. How, like, what's with the transition?
Yeah, when I was growing up, again, remember being homeschooled, right? So you inside a lot. You watching everything you watching on TV at 11, 12 years old is 106 in Park,
Mhm.
MTV, TRL, and Times Square. You listen to, the radio, and most of the radio artists played on mainstream radio are, East Coast rappers because that's who at the time ran the industry. Being New York centric. So I really just dove in on when I wanted to learn the industry. I was reading Vibe, Double XL, The Source. All these things are based in New York. And at the
Yeah.
time, I'm not really, you're aware of the power that and the influence that the West Coast has, but you're looking at the guys who are really controlling the narrative of hip hop overall. And it was a lot of stuff coming out the East Coast. So I just locked in on that in that space and just really, I mean, as a kid, just locked in and learned, Def Jam and learned, Interscope and Rockefeller and Murder Inc. and studied Irv and Jay and Puff and all these guys because they were just winning so big. It was so in your face. Like you couldn't get around, especially at 11, 12 years old. And we're coming, again, we're coming fresh off of, in the early 2000s, fresh off of the East Coast, West Coast thing.
Yeah.
And so that was still very, it was very much East, the mainstream hip hop was very much dominated by New York still at the time. And Atlanta was creeping in there, but the West Coast on the mainstream level was wasn't as strong as it once had been. So I think I just locked in on that and just really got enamored with the whole way they did their thing. And it just kind of opened my mind up to a whole nother way of looking at the industry and the business. And I think ultimately it really helped. It gave me a totally different view that benefited, ultimately in the end.
Yeah, definitely. So from my understanding, you to get to the documentary, kind of the prequel,
Mm-hmm.
you initially did a unofficial Murder Inc. documentary,
Yeah.
and you posted the link on social media, and kind of the rest is history. Can you go into that for us?
Yeah. So, I started a company or a brand, I should say, after college, C-Suite Music on my hat. And, what one thing I wanted to do was take our stories and take it beyond just music and really highlight the stories that were important to me growing up and things I found inspirational and create these little mini documentaries out of it. And so I think I created the first documentary I did was on Jay-Z. I did one on Will Smith. I've done a few of these things, and they were just stories that I found inspiring or entertaining and things I wanted to kind of highlight, and stories that weren't really being told in a certain kind of way. And ultimately I decided, I said, let me do one on Irv Gotti and Murder Inc. because that was Irv is the reason, Irv and Murder Inc. And we can get into that too. One of the reasons I even got into the business in the first place at 11, 12 years old. You asked me about, why I was so East Coast centric, but the Murder Inc. run and Irv Gotti and that whole era, that was the reason why I even got into wanting to become an artist, wanting to become a businessman, along with Jay and everything. But I remember it was the summer of 2002, some 20 years ago now, and Ja Rule was on fire, Ashanti was on fire, Murder Inc. was, the hot brand at the time. And I remember Irv had an album called, it was a compilation album, Irv Gotti Presents The Ink. And Ja being one of his artists, who was one of my favorite artists, Ashanti, all these artists he had. And I was like, well, why is this guy Irv Gotti? Who is this guy? Why is he so important? Why is he, run, and I did my research, and oh, he's the boss, oh, he's the producer, oh, he runs the label. Okay, and that got me into that whole world. Like, oh, you can do more than just rap. You can, and you still can have your name in lights. You can still be, and so that's what got me there. And so, all these years later, I've been following the Murder Inc. story and just keeping up with everything that Irv was doing and everything that the label, had done. And I just wanted to put it down on wax, as they say, and just put it into a documentary. And I did it, put it up on YouTube, and some 6 months later, after I put it up, maybe 4 or 6 months later, after I put it up, Irv put a post on Instagram saying that he had seen it and asked Instagram to get people, his followers, to reach out to me, and they connected us, and the rest is history.
So how did that? Well, before we get to that, so a lot of times when people see people starting to progress and come into their shine, I'll say, they tend to bypass or overlook the process it took to get there.
Definitely.
Right. So the time frame from you starting off as an artist, and I think you said you went into producing, and then you went into your next thing, your next thing, your next thing. What people don't understand is all of that plays a part in where you are now.
Absolutely.
How long would you say that process was from you starting out as an artist to where you are now?
Man, it was, what, I was, like I said, 11, 12 years old. So I'm 30, I'll be 32 next week. So that's
20 years.
About 20 years, about a 20-year process, man, of just nonstop, like, grinding from the time when the idea first popped in my head to where I'm at now. And I tell you, it's a lot of work that goes in between that. It's a lot of disappointments, it's a lot of failures. And like you were saying, everything that you do, that you go through, prepares you for the moment that when you ultimately are met with the opportunity. And so I done just about everything in the business. I mean, from obviously rapping and producing and making, videos, and I worked in radio. I've been behind the camera, I've been in front of the camera, I've been on stage as a performer, I've been on air as a radio personality. I've been, I've managed a radio station now in college. Like, I've done I did promotions. Like every type of thing you can do in this business, from event planning, you know what I mean? Like graphic design, engineering, you know what I mean? Like, the mixing and mastering. I literally have done every single thing in this business, damn near, to the point where when that time came, it wasn't like oh man, this moment is too big. It's like, no, everything I did has prepared me for that. I knew a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of, enough of the mechanics to say, okay, I may have never done a TV show before, but if I got through that, I can get through this. If I learned that I can learn this. And so I'm a quick study, and I just took all my experiences and put them all into grind mode, and end up producing this and directing this 5-part series. But you're absolutely right that everything you do prior prepares you for that moment when, all right, it's time for the rubber to meet the road,
So from start to finish, how long would you say the process was to do the Murder Inc. story?
Oh man, that was from start to finish, honestly, it was a 3-year process. A 3-year process from the time that Irv called me and we started talking, to when it actually aired. It was all about 3 years. Irv is a lot like me, like, because we come from hip hop. Once we get an idea, we just start working on it. We ready to go, we ready to rock. So shortly after we started talking, we just started, and he had asked me and told me he wanted me to be the director of the project. We just went to work. I just went to work, started, writing out the script and the treatment for the whole documentary, lining up people I said I wanted to interview. I started interviewing folks like in 2019. This whole thing happened in 2019. The Irv reaching out to me, and I started interviewing folks for the doc in 2019. We didn't have a budget. We didn't have no funding. We didn't have no major backing or anything, a studio behind us or anything. We were just going out there kind of doing it. We ended up having a deal on the table with Live Nation and their production company. They were going to be the ones who were going to, distribute it and help us produce it. Then the pandemic hit, and that shut everything down, shut the whole business down, and that we kind of went dormant for almost a year. But even in that year, I was still working. I was still not getting paid, not on nobody's payroll or anything, just off the sheer passion that I have for the project. I was still figuring things out, going shooting little things, adding little things, putting things together. And ultimately, when all that work led us to BET, who became very interested in the project, and they picked it up at the tail end of 2021. We started shooting in 2022, the very top of 2022 this year, and we didn't finish filming until about August, right before it aired. So we it was a long. I mean, it felt like a long process. It felt like sometimes it never was going to happen. It felt like we had a lot of false starts and a lot of, just the regular rigmarole of trying to get something going. But we got it done. But yeah, it was like a 3.5-year process, man.
It came out dope though. I will give you that. That's one of the best docuseries I've seen.
Thank you, man.
And
Thank
I've
you.
seen quite a few. No, thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
So you mentioned, and I'm kind of backtracking a little bit, but you mentioned your company, C-Suite Music. What can you tell us about that?
I mean, C-Suite Music is, first of all, the name. People ask about the name all the time. What does that mean? C-Suite is slang for, in a corporate world, for, like the chief executive officer, the COO, the people they call them the C-suites, the chief, yeah, and so, hip hop, we're always taking stuff and repurposing it for our own, like Rockefeller. I mean, like Rockefeller Records was, the real Rockefeller, Murder Inc. That was something else. We always taking these things and repurposing it and making it our own and kind of taking ownership over that. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna take that same idea of the big dogs, the higher ups, the top shelf, and I'm gonna combine that with music. And for me, it's not just about hip hop, but like music is culture for us, like especially for Black people. Like that's so much of our culture, of our spirit, of our ecosystem is based around music. And so what I'm trying to say is that, you know what I mean? Like, so what I'm trying to say with C-Suite Music is that I'm going to, with everything that we do under this brand, we're going to present our culture at the highest level. Our culture, our music, there's enough of the no shade with the shade room stuff and the world star stuff. I mean, and it all that has a place, but we want to show, sometimes we don't need to show ourselves being just doing
Negative
stuff, and let's elevate our culture, elevate our stories. And that's the spirit that I made the Murder Inc. doc, the original one, under. And all the work that we do is not just about, it's not even just music, as you probably know. Like we work with politicians, we work with business, we work with brands to try to bring that hip hop lens and add that flavor that we bring, only we can bring to a product or to a situation. But always doing it with taste and respect and dignity, and just showing that our culture can be more than just strip clubs and stuff. Which we love the strip club, we love to have fun and party, but we can do more than that. We can influence business, we can influence politics, we can influence commerce and the arts at the highest levels. And that's the spirit, at least, I've always wanted to carry with C-Suite.
No, that's dope. So you mentioned that the marriage between creativity and hustle is underestimated. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, creativity and hustle, almost, they're not necessarily, sometimes they don't always go together, right? Like sometimes people have the creativity, but they don't have the hustle. Sometimes people have the hustle and they don't have the creativity. So if you're able to find those two things and combine them, that's how you get a J. That's how you get a, I know we don't we feel a way about on today, but like even like an Elon Musk, who's not necessarily hip hop, but the creativity, the genius of innovation, but also have like the hustle to know how to tap into a certain, you know what I mean? Like that's where you get those real genius, folks and opportunities. And so for me, that's what hip hop represents to me. Like hip hop is not just a music. It's not just like a genre. And I try to tell people this all the time, almost like, in a religious way, man. Like, like hip hop is an ecosystem. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of doing things. It's, you know what I mean? Like, so it's given us opportunities as us as Black people, opportunities that we would have never had in America if we didn't create this thing called hip hop. Like, let's be real. Like, we're sitting here now talking about this documentary that I did on Irv Gotti, who is a kid from Queens. He came up in a, working class, poor background and was able to turn that into a multi-million-dollar, business because of hip hop, because of, he was 13 years old on the turntables. I was 13 years old on my computer, and I've created a life and ecosystem off of doing videos and stuff on my computer. He was 12, 13 doing records on his friends' turntables or whatever, and mastering that technology and turn that into a business. Like, imagine if somebody had put a motherboard or something in front of Irv instead of a turntable. He could have created Tesla. He could have created Apple. You know what I'm saying? Just because he has the genius already, but it was like Nipsey said, he a genius. He just can't explain it because it left him no platform to explain it. So it's like, if you don't have a platform or the opportunity, then how can you get that genius out? And that's what hip hop did. That's why you see, now we're billionaires and we're businessmen and we have all these things because hip hop was the outlet to get us the capital that we needed to then start a venture capital company, to start a film company, to, start opening up schools here and there, like, Puffy's doing, or like LeBron is doing in his hometown. Like we hip hop and that culture gave us that pipeline to do these things. And that's why I'm like, we got to keep tapping into that same energy, that vibranium, if you will, like we gotta, that's that marriage of hustle and creativity. That's hip hop, man.
No, that's true. I definitely agree to that. So the transition from the release of your unofficial Murder Inc. documentary to the release of the official the Murder Inc. story docuseries, what was the timeline for that?
It was the from the time the unauthorized came out.
Yeah. No, so not even from the time that came out, but the
Okay.
time that you got that idea,
Right.
went through the process, put it together, put the link up,
Yeah.
you got contacted, you're doing the series is done.
Yeah. No, honestly, the idea first came to me in maybe 2015, 2016 or something, to do a documentary on Murder Inc. Because I kind of started dabbling into making these little miniature documentaries and put them on YouTube. And I started on doing something, and I just kind of put it to the side and never really thought about it again until 2018, when I moved to New York for grad school at NYU. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna pick up doing these things again, and I need to, find these stories that I want to do. And instantly, I thought about Murder Inc. and I did it. And I think I might have started let me see, I put it up in of October of 2018. So I want to say August, September is when I started actually really working on it. Put it up in October. And from there, I mean, it was all, all she wrote from there. But like I said, a 3-year process from that time to the actual release of the official documentary. But I mean, the transition was crazy. The transition from doing a documentary on YouTube to doing a documentary for network TV, BET, which is a station I looked up to, a channel I looked up to, and had a huge influence on that's why I became a music video director, and probably why I became a rapper, watching these videos and watching, that culture displayed on TV. So to be able to have the opportunity to do that was just mind blowing, man, with BET. And just from making something on YouTube where it's just you in the room. It's just you in your little studio working on your laptop or whatever, and you only answer to you, to actually now having to answer to a whole network. Every little thing you do is like super scrutinized. Why'd you ask this question? Or let's choose this thing. Like, why'd you choose that background? Like, we have to approve this, we have to approve that. It was kind of a crazy transition, man, because I'm such an independent like worker and thinker that it was hard to kind of have to answer to like four bosses and stuff,
Yeah.
or even have a boss. And so that was kind of crazy. But I think I was able to get enough of my creative juices out, and marry that with what their vision was for the series, with what my vision was for it. And I think we found a really happy medium. And I think I'm a better creator now for the experience I had working with them. So that transition was definitely it was definitely crazy, but I appreciate it now looking back.
Nice. So, what's been the response to the docuseries so far?
And maybe it's because, when you get people talking to you, they just want to say good things. But so far, it's only been positive response. I mean, even I was kind of trolling the internet while it was like playing in real time. So I was looking at my Twitter timeline, not mine, but just looking at Twitter in general, and looking at the hashtag and seeing. And honestly, I mean, obviously there was a lot of controversy around Irv Gotti and Ashanti and things that he had said on Drink Champ. So there was some negative pushback on Twitter for that. But people would be like, yo, Irv's a jerk for saying that. But the documentary is amazing. Like, almost universally, that was like the response. Like, everyone was people were mad, they were hating, but they were hating on Irv, but they weren't really hating on the overall documentary. And I think Irv enjoys that, being in that space, because he's controversial. He likes to make people talk and stuff. So I don't that didn't really bother us all that much about the whatever little negativity that people had, but the overall response felt to be like, wow, this is really, like, I did not know that. I didn't know that I was surprised how many people didn't know that the influence and the I guess the cross convergence that Irv and Jay-Z had, and Rockefeller and Murder Inc. and
Yeah.
what he did with DMX, and how he played a role in reviving Def Jam, and it's like all these little nuggets that people just didn't know. And I was surprised. I thought it was just common knowledge, but I think people really got to see a different side of this, this piece of history that hadn't really been exposed to a lot of people. So I think the public generally, they seem to really appreciate that.
No, that's
I mean,
good.
even Ashanti, I heard Ashanti speak pretty, as favorably as she possibly could about, at least episode 1, and how we went back and told Irv's story and the origins of Murder Inc. and, how he met John, Jay, and X. And, Ashanti, who wasn't our best friend during this process, even she had to kind of give it up and like, yeah, it was interesting. So I think we did our job, man. We got to tell a piece of hip hop history that will live on forever, and I'm grateful for that.
Nice. So, what was something that you learned from doing the docuseries that you didn't know initially about the Murder Inc. Story or saga, I should say?
I think it's hard to say, because I feel like I knew so much about the story even prior to even meeting Irv and meeting the team and interviewing everybody, that it was very little things that I didn't know. And the things that I did find out were things I probably couldn't even put on
Oh,
the
okay.
in the doc, and things that I probably wouldn't talk about.
Yeah,
but
I
but
got
for the
you.
most part, I feel like I knew, because again, this was a 3-year process. Over the
Yeah.
time, you start to hear every single story possible. But I think if I could say one thing I did not know, or didn't really didn't fully appreciate until after I did the doc, was just how rare and special that moment was in time. That early 2000s, Def Jam era, when you had Murder Inc., you had
Oh, never see
Rockefeller,
that again.
say what?
I said we'll probably never see that again.
No, we'll never see it again. I'm like, and that was just a special moment in time, and people were getting so much money, you know, to see like these young Black guys from the hood getting all this money and all this power and not really knowing what to do with them. I mean, you see where Irv's story ultimately ended up being, you know, at a such a young age, it gained so much and then lost so much at the same time. But that whole era was just so special, man. I mean, just in the music business alone, we'll never see that time for hip hop or anything else. Probably never see that kind of money again because, you know, at the time, what was the hot thing? CDs, and a CD costs what, 5 cents to make, and then, you know, they're selling them for $10, $20 a pop.
20, yeah.
All this money, you know what I mean? And it was just, people were selling 2-3 million albums at a time, and it was just so, it was like Sodom and Gomorrah, and you know, it was just all this money and decadence and stuff. And you know, people getting money now for sure. Like, you definitely got folks getting money, and people are still successful, but it's so rare, far few between now. And that time was just special. And I think you learn that watching the Murder Inc. doc, just how, you know, just how special that time was. And we, like you said, we'll never probably see it again.
No, true. So you mentioned Jay-Z, DMX, and Ja Rule. So the Murder Inc. album never happened featuring Ja Rule, DMX, and Jay-Z. But if it had happened, what do you think that album would have meant to hip hop?
Oh man, I mean, I think it probably would have changed the trajectory of hip hop, honestly. I mean, because you got to think that was a time when people weren't doing, I mean, now it's like every other week you got like, you know, Future and this other person, or, you know, Drake and 21 Savage, or somebody's always doing collab albums. And it's like the norm now, right? But now, I mean, back then it was like, you didn't see collab albums with guys of that. Well, you know, Ja wasn't quite who he was going to become ultimately, but even just knowing who he would have become,
Yeah.
and looking at the power of J and the power of X, and have all, man, it would have been explosive. It would have been huge. But it's also probably why you did not see the album, because, you know, I think Jay said it in the documentaries, like the egos and everyone, you know, people are, you know, they were young, they you know, they didn't really understand the power of what they had in their hands at that time. So, you know, now I think we're in a different space. Not that people don't have egos now in hip hop, but it's a lot more camaraderie and a lot more, it's a lot less competitive in that regard than it used to be. You know, because people really, when you got on that mic, you had to really deliver. It wasn't like no, you know, it wasn't no mumbling. Them guys was really rapping. Like, all three of them guys can really rap. Like, like, don't get it twisted. Ja made the great commercial radio records, but that dude can really actually rap. Like, really, really, like, you know what I mean? Like, he gets busy. Like, I told y'all, like, Ja, you're one of my favorite artists, and you don't get the credit that you deserve. But your pen is ridiculous. Not just writing hit songs, but you can write raps. And that, you know, and you know what Jay can do. You know what Energy X brings, or brung, and that, you know, you putting all that together on an album, you get 10 or 12 of those tracks, man. Yeah, it would have changed the whole game, I think.
Yeah, I agree. That would have been hard to follow up.
Yeah.
So do you have any other projects that you're working on that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so I'm working on a few documentaries, really, and some we're just getting into, you know, we're getting into pre-production and trying to get it started. I'm doing a documentary based, and this is kind of, I haven't really talked about this publicly too much. It just happened, but there was this this Black-owned network in Oakland, California, where I grew up, called Soul Beat, and it was owned by a guy named Chuck Johnson, who was an entrepreneur, and he just, you know, in the 70s started this, I think even before BET, started this Black-owned channel based in Oakland, California, and it kind of, in the 90s, it really became this hot hub for hip hop and hip hop culture. And it's kind of a hidden gem. A lot of people don't know about it, but everybody came through, from Jay-Z to LL Cool J to, you know, Eazy-E, Tupac, like all these, you know, these folks who are legends now had to come through this little Black-owned TV channel in Oakland. And I think, a lot of people don't know about this. And as we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of hip hop, I think it's important to tell those kind of hidden stories, and it's special to me. It's a part of my heritage as being from Oakland. And so we're incubating that and getting that ready to we don't have a network or anything for it yet, but this is a passion project of mine that I'm helping to push forward, and hopefully we'll get it to a network soon. But that working on some stuff with Rock Nation and the Sean Carter Foundation, who put me through school. We're doing some really special stuff, and I don't want to talk about it too much, but let's just say we're definitely doing a documentary around the foundation and with the work that they've done. And yeah, so those projects are keeping me busy. I got a couple other things, but I don't want to really speak on too much before they before the ink dries and stuff. But a lot of exciting things, man. Very, very appreciative of all the opportunities that opened up to me after Murder Inc.
Dope. So how can the listeners support you and everything that you do?
Man, well, my Cash App is no, I'm just playing. No, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm really active on Instagram. I'm trying to get back active on Twitter until Elon kicks me off. But I at C Suite Music is on my hat right here. Tap in with me on my website, csweetmusic.com. Yeah, man, and I'm always looking to help the next generation come up and give advice and help to guide or give any kind of advice I can. So I tell people I'm always an open book when it comes to to reaching out. If you can reach me, sometimes I'm busy and I can't respond to everybody, but ultimately I love to pay it forward, because I know how it is, being on the other side and trying to get your name out there, trying to get your product and your your creativity out there. It's not easy, but I love to tap in with the folks who doing the work and give them some encouragement, man. So please, by all means, tap in and let's chat.
Dope. You got any last words for the people?
Man, follow your dreams, man. Stay at it. Keep at it. Do not give up. It's gonna be a lot of forks in the road. It's gonna be a lot of false starts and things that are gonna happen that you may not, see where the future is gonna lead you to. But if you stay at it and you believe over and beyond over whatever anybody else is saying, or whatever people are telling you, or even that inner voice in your head, that doubt in your head is telling you sometimes, just stay at it. And I'm telling you, it may take some time, but you can achieve your dreams if you stay at it, man. So let's lead the people with those words of encouragement.
Dope. You heard it here, just like that. One time for hip hop culture. We out.